Good evening, everyone. Richard Cowperthwait for Northwest Access TV, joining us for another monthly St. Albans Today show. We missed last month, Wednesday, the first Wednesday being July 4th, but we're back on Wednesday, August 1st, as summer's moving along. Happy to have St. Albans Mayor Tim Smith.
Thank you, Richard.
St. Albans Town Manager Carrie Johnson, and St. Albans Town Public Works Director Alan Mashtere. Thanks for the time, folks. Good to see you. Talking about Public Works, Tim, a big issue for the city. Mr. Alan Mashtere, who I think will join us maybe on the September show, hopefully early next month, down to his last month after a long, storied career. How are you faring? Has a replacement been picked? Are you getting close?
No replacement's been picked. I believe they had about 50 applicants.
Yeah.
And they've narrowed it down. I think they narrowed it down to 6, which they did a first round of interviews from, or if they haven't completed them, they've started them.
Yeah.
And then there'll be a second round later in the month.
So presumably have a successor this month before Alan Mashtere leaves, presumably?
That's the plan.
You've some good applicants there, both from in-state and out-of-state?
A number of local, mostly in-state, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Alan, seeing as you're on the panel and stuff, former St. Albans City Public Works guy, were you one of the applicants? Anything you can say about that?
Well, that would be interesting to learn tonight, wouldn't it?
I feel like I'm an awkward start if you were. I feel like I should.
Alan's first show and he's getting hit hard.
No, I wasn't one of the applicants.
Actually, there were rumblings around that City Hall official Marty Manahan was one of the applicants, and I did ask Mr. Manahan myself. He said he was not one of the applicants, but that rumor was going around also. But anyway, it sounds like you got a pretty good response to that.
I think the city manager was happy with the response and with the quality of the applicants, so it'll be interesting moving forward.
For sure. Boy, Alan's been on board for what? We're talking 30 plus years, Tim? We're talking a long time.
Oh, more than 30.
Way
yeah,
more.
I would say, I think 40.
Maybe closer to 40 plus years. Even.
Alan, from what I understood, Alan started there as a summer youth employment program and when he was in high school.
Wow.
And there's no one that knows the system or has the knowledge of the system more than Alan Mashtere. We had a meeting last night with the Football Association, and we joked that we had a couple things that we wanted to catch Alan on before he retired, and we just thought that if everyone was of the same mindset, that he may not be able to retire in August if everyone gives him their duties that they need him to set out and complete. So
in fact, I wondered about that. August 31st, that does seem like a pretty hard time, but I can only assume he'll certainly make himself available and get together with his successor.
Yeah, he'll be, the city's going to keep him on a consultant basis.
That certainly makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and he's readily available, so it'll be.
I should mention, this is a live show, Lisa. If you're watching us live, love to get phone calls. Plenty of St. Albans issues to talk about. Our number 528-5315, which is on your screen if you're watching us. Love to get some calls. Talking Public Works, Carrie, of course, the town put before voters a couple of years ago, trying to get the PW department garage moved out of its Bay location. Is that issue? I'm sure that's an issue that certainly hasn't gone away. Is that in fact coming back before voters?
It is, yes.
In November?
It was 2015, the last time that we asked voters in the fall to look at that project. And I guess the short version is that the vote didn't pass. We kind of stepped back, looked at the process, and decided, asked ourselves, one, do we need to do this? And the answer is still yes. So May of 2017, the select board was asked to appoint a steering committee, an infrastructure steering committee, and that all new committee started the process of evaluating what the needs were for both DPW and Town Hall, and so we're focusing on the Department of Public Works right now. And after, it was really kind of a quick one-year process, because one of the lessons we learned the last time was we thought it was an obvious yes. We thought, well, we need it, and we tried to push that process and condense it to about 3 or 4 months, which was really just too fast to get the word out. And I'm not sure if people really understood the needs. So we stepped back, got a committee full of some business owners, some local people that know their community and get different feedback than we get. And we've been building on that for the last year and a half. And we are now proposing a new Department of Public Works facility in November of 2018.
Are we talking Brigham Road, the town
We are-
owned Brigham Road?
Yes, we looked at other options, actually, and it's interesting to me that Alan and I were talking about this earlier, that we have a different steering committee, we have a different DPW director, we use a different consultant, and yet we came out with a very similar project. This one, I believe, is a better value. We have a stronger project, but in essence, it's still a garage or shop with a salt shed on our 73-acre parcel of Brigham Road, located right next to the rail. So we are really excited about it, actually, because it's just a really good project. We have a few pictures of it. I actually have a visual aid for you to look at. That this is just a conceptual plan.
I guess maybe can I hold this up, Zach? Are you?
He actually
I guess
has
that's
copies
looks
of
like
it
a pretty
too.
good. Well,
I sent it.
Yeah.
that's right. Good. Thanks. Yeah,
Sent
it's
it to
good looking.
him.
Good looking building.
And so our hope there is it's already an industrial use, that maybe we can get better access to salt and some other supplies. But at least initially, our goal is to get the Department of Public Works off Lake Champlain.
Is the price tag nailed? Is this project totally nailed down? Have you got a price tag for this now?
It is not entirely nailed down. This is
That
just
seemed to be an
another.
issue the first time. I think a number of people just thought it was too
Correct.
expensive a project.
This is a better value. What we
amazing.
haven't nailed down was the inflation factor. You know, hey, what would that project from 2015
Yeah.
cost today?
I
So
guess one photo is enough.
he has some photos, actually, I emailed him.
That's well. I'm going to throw
that works,
Zach.
but-
Can we do one more? That's
That's a no, I guess.
that's okay.
a hard
We'll keep
no.
talking.
Anyway, so it's a good project. Alan can probably speak to uses, but the bigger picture is we believe this is a better value. You know, this building, once built, will probably be here for 50 to 75 years.
Yeah.
So we're hoping people understand the need both to protect our environment and for a more centrally located, more efficient shop.
So you might not quite make it to St. Albans City Hall, century old, but you're hoping for maybe 50, 75 years anyway.
Knowing how a town operates, once we build this, and we're building it with a little bit of room, it's not excessive, but for growth. We're leaving some room for growth.
A question I've been told on this show for, it seems like the last year or so, that there was an interested party. There was a party interested in at least
Yes.
some of the Brigham Road town-owned land. Is that entity still there, or has that gone away?
We haven't heard a whole lot from them in a while, so right now there's an option pending, but they have, next week we may be able to talk about it a little more. There's a couple different entities that are expressing interest, so I hope at least one of them sticks.
And of course, the town, maybe you said this, Carrie, how much land would the town PW use on Brigham Road?
We're estimating about 10. We want to retain at least 10 to 12 acres because we don't want to be in the position we're in now where we're using every inch of the space and feel cramped, can't really utilize.
So suffice it to
what we
say, you
want.
have plenty of other, much more land out there if you do have other interested parties in something.
Right.
Alan, I can only assume some new digs. You know the town PW garage and department obviously very well by now. You could really use some a new headquarters.
We could. Don't have a lot of space to store our equipment, so keeping it out of the weather to maintain it is a necessity, I would say. It's unable to wash our trucks. I mean, the water supply, and we don't have a wash bay within the old garage. And using the brine and the salt, that stuff just sticks to your equipment and rots it away a lot quicker than anywhere else. So having a wash bay in the new garage will be a huge help. Right now we're stuck with the cold weather. After you get done plowing, when I worked for the city, obviously they had a wash bay. You could wash your trucks down after every storm. We can't down there. We have to wait until the weather's above freezing and wash the trucks outside. So I think just the wash bay in itself is going to be huge.
Carrie, one related question to the finances. The town has, I'm sure you could give me the amount to the penny maybe. You've got a bunch of money in your local 1% local option sales tax.
Correct.
Katie has in close to $2 $2 million at this point?
I believe it's close to 3.
Is it close to
And
3?
we are
Wow.
proposing, once we have a price on this, to use those funds to pay for most of it, if not all of the project. So
Wow.
the need is there, the environmental need is there, as well as just functional space, but also we can sell it as it should not increase your taxes.
Well, that sounds like it should be a much easier sell. We've
so-
got our first phone call. We may come back to that. Go ahead, caller. Thanks for calling. Go ahead, caller.
Good evening, everybody on Public Access.
Hey, good evening.
Yeah, the reason I wanted to call up, I understand I'm sitting in the parking lot in Highgate, so I can't see what's going on, but I understand Alan Mashtere and Carrie Johnson are there.
That's accurate, along with St. Albans Mayor Tim Smith. You got it.
Yeah, I want to thank Alan Mashtere and Carrie Johnson for all their hard work in reference to the town park. The town park is outstanding. So as a town taxpayer, I appreciate that.
Thank you,
And
David.
then I have a question for Tim Smith.
I don't have an answer for you.
I know you ain't gonna get a phone in there. Dominic's never gonna let it happen. My other question is, I understand there's about 40 people that applied for the job as Alan Mashtere.
We touched on that a little bit. I think the number was 50, David.
Yeah. Are you gonna get somebody qualified, or are you gonna put Marty Manahan in there?
Marty did not apply.
He didn't.
No.
Well, I
You're-
hope
you're-
you get somebody that's really qualified. I think Brian Burns would be the person to do you a good job. So, well, I gotta get out of my vehicle because I'm using this expensive gas. So I'll let you guys go on. Thanks for coming on Public Access.
David, we have no control over the price of gas.
I know you don't. Just the amount of hot air out of City Hall. Bye.
Thanks, David. Again, our number, 528-5315. Speaking of not the price of gas, but vehicles, one of your constituents, Mr. Mayor, asked me this a while ago. It said, Rich, you know how many city-owned vehicles there are? I think this person said there were like 67 or something. I said, wow, it sure sounds high. I have no idea whether that's accurate, but let me throw that at you. Is that accurate?
I don't know, to tell the truth, Richard.
Has that issue come up? Anybody said
No,
anything?
I think we probably had the same person have the conversation with us. It seems high to me. We haven't gotten into the whole budget process yet, so I haven't looked at that. Yeah, if there is, I don't know where they all are, because obviously you have.
You haven't been given too many for yourself, I would guess.
No, I don't have mine yet. No, and maybe Alan. I don't know. Alan might be able to answer how many were in Public Works at one time.
Yeah, remember how many were like city public works? Would obviously have a bunch of them.
15 or so, maybe.
Not even that many.
Yeah. So
I mean, I think if you took the fire station, police department, and public works, I still say you'd be under 60.
Yeah,
I think
that's
that's
what
an
I
I
can
can see
awful.
where you'd get up there, but 60,
yeah,
and
60
again,
seemed like a lot to me.
did seem like a lot, but anyway, I thought I'd mention that to you.
Yeah, no, that's.
While we're talking public works, city public works garage, I mean, some issues there. Is that not, I realize you have higher priorities, but is that a kind of a lurking issue about maybe changing that location, Tim, or down the road anyway?
That is definitely under discussion at this point. Part of that discussion goes hand in hand with the need for potentially a new pool. The existing pool is 38 years old, which is very hard to believe. It's
probably pretty impressive. I mean, that's pretty good.
average
pretty good.
life is about 30, from
Is
what
that
I
right?
understand.
Yeah.
So the city has been working with a consultant to have that discussion, and depending what decisions are made, it may have an impact on Public Works and where they end up.
I guess a higher priority, obviously, I guess, is the city police department. Again, the proposed move over to CCV headquarters, tying into the North Main Street project. How's that moving along?
Still a lot of moving parts associated with that. Dominic has been very active in those discussions. So nothing cast in stone by any means. and just a lot of discussions going on. So.
And again, that all ties together. I mean, we're obviously, I assume, we're not going to see City Police Department moving to CCV until and unless they have
Right,
their
no, it's,
new quarters on North Main. It all
Right.
ties together, obviously.
Everything ties together. One part of that isn't going to happen without the
Interesting.
other 2 or 3 parts.
Would
so.
you expect or at least hope to nail that down? I mean, sometime this calendar
Well,
year anyway?
Well, the hope was if all the tenants aligned on the new building across from City Hall, that they would break ground in the fall.
Really?
So that's the tentative timeline.
Yeah.
If it doesn't happen, it'll get pushed back till spring.
Yeah.
So still moving, but like I said, nothing cast in stone at this stage. Just
Yeah.
a lot of discussions.
Carrie, just to emphasize again the point on the town's public works garage project. So again, taxpayers may get out of this without maybe paying anything or very, very little because of your local option sales tax money.
Right, I mean, we're very cognizant that the money there is taxpayer money, but some people are quick to remind us of that, and I'm absolutely aware that it is taxpayers' money, but what I like to say is we won't be raising your taxes for this project, which is important because we all saw our tax bills go up a little bit. I'm cognizant of every dollar. So we're having a public meeting in both August and September. Just a public informational meeting. It's fairly informal, so you can call, you can send us an email if you have questions or concerns that need to be addressed at those meetings. And Monday night on August 6th, our infrastructure committee is presenting this project to the select board, where they'll most likely officially forward it. And then we will have those public information meetings because the November ballot must be warned towards the end of September. So that's when it's.
Boy, we're talking August 1st. That's
We're not very far away.
So far away.
That's right.
Not so far away.
We're going to have many, many sessions so that people can ask questions about the why and what the need is.
Time frame, construction time frame on the new building, Alan or Carrie?
Let's get it past the voters first.
It's a fairly straightforward project. If we can get, our hope is, and the reason we're trying it this time of year, is if you can get your construction plans done in the wintertime and send out your bid early winter, you'll get a better price on the construction. That's just that's an optimal time to go out to bid for projects. It's not the only time, but it's one of the better times. And we're hoping to start at some point next year after you have, of course, all your permits. We are a town, but we still have to get permits.
Yeah. And again, if you're successful with voters approving the project, the use for the existing public works garage, I mean, that's getting some thought, or again, you're
Well, I mean, that's a really great question, and that's a community discussion we haven't had yet. The surveys that the select board approved just went out. They were received in most people's mailboxes in the last 2 or 3 days. One of the questions on that survey is, what would you like to do with that facility once, hopefully, we vacate it? And we are in some very early negotiations with the state of Vermont to find out if they have any interest for a boating access area. They are interested, but that's about all that we've done to date.
The acreage there is about 5 acres or so? Or what?
Under that, I
It's
think.
under that.
Not even,
4,
not
maybe?
even 5.
It's 3 or 4 acres.
Interesting.
Not very big.
I mean, obviously, lake frontage, and that's not a great use of lake
You got the
frontage.
new St. Albans Bay Marina, of course, right next door, pretty much.
Yes.
And would those folks, would they have any interest? Have you talked to them at all? Or?
We haven't talked to them. We really wanted to start with this project, get it underway, and then have the discussion once we vacated that lot about what to do with it.
Yeah. And speaking of projects in the town, what about the town hall? Is that coming up for a vote in November also? You've been looking at, obviously, a new site for the town hall.
It is not going to be on the November ballot.
Yeah.
We're actually focusing on one project.
Yeah.
Hopefully this gets approved, and then we are still working behind the scenes. There's a lot of planning, as Tim knows, before you actually see the first excavator on site. So we're in the planning stage with that, but it's not gone. So I'm hoping next year that we can ask the question, do you support this project? This is what we would like to do.
Yeah, Tim?
Yeah, I just wanted to jump in on something that Carrie touched on, and
Yeah.
that was the most recent tax bills, both city and town, and probably Fairfield too, and what the increase, I would sort of defend our turf, that the majority of that was school budgets,
It was.
It was,
Typical of the tax bill you get, of course.
and you're probably about the same boat as, but $300 increase was a little bit of a shock, I thought.
I was a little surprised. Seems like I read a bunch of stories about if the consolidation happened, which of course it did. Yeah, I've been meaning to ask somebody.
I'd like to get the answer. That might, what I remember was that our taxes were all supposed to go down about $200.
I didn't even remember, I think, a higher figure than that, but
Yeah,
in any
maybe.
case. So you've been wondering about that too.
But I think that's, that increase is going to impact what we can do as communities when we go, because a lot of people
Correct.
don't look at the separation. It looks at one tax bill,
Right.
and because they are going to the town hall or to the complex to
Yeah.
vote for the town,
Yeah.
and they're coming to city hall to vote in the city, I think there's that connection that, oh, this is a city, this is a city vote as to the city's budget or the town's budget. And we're just a small piece of that total amount.
Yeah, I mean, typically on one's tax bill, it typically is pretty close to what, 3/4 school, 1/4 municipal?
20% in
or
our
even
case.
80/20, 80%
Yeah.
school, 20.
Right.
No,
And
that's
our-
a good point.
To Tim's point, our tax rate did not go up this past year
Hmm.
either, so, yes.
Yes,
that's a-
it's
No,
a-
good point.
it's a
Tim,
problem.
any issues on the city ballot in November, on the midterm election, November election day?
No,
No more TIF initiatives or anything at this
no,
point?
there's nothing lined up, no bonds of this. We passed the one in March for the project across the street, and
Yeah.
that's a big project that's on the forefront right now. So I don't expect any.
As in, you're talking wastewater plant, the renovation, or you're talking?
No, the renovation's underway, and
Right.
that's been done, and the
I
one
know
I'm
there's
talking
some
about.
sidewalk work going on, which I can personally attest
Right,
to.
yeah.
A lot of sidewalk and street work going on, which seems
Yep.
to be going pretty well.
Yeah, I think it looks great when it's done, and they're going to be paving, so.
Yeah. And again, the wastewater, that was what, $18 million or so
Yeah.
bond issue, and that
Yeah.
work is underway.
Maybe that's something that the city of Burlington should look at.
Boy, Berlin must be, from
Really?
the St. Albans perspective, it must be kind of nice. I mean, the Bay Park, usually check every week, the Lake Champlain Committee's cyanobacteria, blue-green algae report. There've been some spots, but I was down there as recently as last night. The beach open signs are hanging in at the Bay Park, so I guess there hasn't, of course, the water's so low. It drives me crazy, but anyway, but I guess there haven't been a lot of problems so far. Knock on wood. Any wood around here?
I would just comment on Dave's comment is that I think the park looks as good as it ever has. Alan and your team, I mean, the walking path is beautiful.
It's kept up. I'm down there about 4 or 5 days, nights a week, and it is kept up very well.
And Carrie and I, we were out together, and not on a date, but on.
Right, to clarify.
So we talked about the beach and the machinery that you have to keep the beach clean, and it just looks great.
Yeah,
Right?
no, the beach looks, the low water drives me crazy, but no, the beach looks pretty good. And again, the Bay Park, I wanted to note that. I guess, Gary, you caught some of the music Saturday, I caught some of it.
Did.
At the Bay Park, and again, the farmer's market, the Wednesday farmer's market going on as we speak. But boy, the Bay Park's getting, more activity. Again, another event coming up this Saturday with the hot
Hot rod
do.
show on Saturday.
hot rod show.
I would like to thank 14 Star, though. They initiated the
Good job.
music festival,
Yeah.
and all the proceeds from that was all a benefit. So the money went to some of the cleanup of Lake Champlain, and some of it's going to the restoration of our bathhouse.
So I was out of town. What was the turnout on that?
It was
certainly-
incredible.
it
The
was
green
easy
was full
hunting.
of people.
It was.
I was a little
Yeah.
concerned because I didn't see much publicity, but of course I'm a dinosaur
I'm-
who doesn't
I'm
deal
the
with
same.
social media.
Yeah, I'm the same.
But I guess social media hit it hard. But I
They
was
did.
I was just a little concerned because I didn't see much publicity. But there are, hundreds.
That's
A
correct.
bunch of hundreds
Yes.
of people there.
Parking lot was full. You would have thought it was
Yeah.
the great race going on.
Yeah.
That's how many cars were down there.
Very very
Right.
nice.
And
Very
they
nice
stayed
event.
to the end, even through a tiny thunderstorm.
I left.
Maybe
Yeah,
not
there was a
tiny, but-
shower came in at 7. I guess it chased me back to the city, but I guess it didn't last too long. But the weather was okay.
Yeah.
It was interesting because the Swanton Car Show, another big event, was scheduled for Saturday, and they actually put it off till Sunday, which was a beautiful day. But Saturday wasn't a bad day.
I would say that whole area, Bayside, the Creamy Stand, the
marina.
marina, to drive down there, and I drove down through, I thought about getting a Creamy, but the line was too long. And
Right.
there's people who had biked down, I don't know where they biked, but there's just so much activity in that three-corner area. It's just great to see the activity down there from an economic development
A
perspective.
lot of
and-
activity.
yeah.
I think people drive, again, I'm there just about every day. It seems like drivers are doing a pretty good drive going by the Creamy Stand. You have the walkway there slowing down. But I know that you were looking into some more parking. Of course, the Bay Park, there's parking there, all of about a 1 or 2 minute walk away. I realize that's
too
stretching
far.
it
It's
for
too far.
It's too
some
far.
people. But again, you looked in, there's no more, you're not going to magically find some more parking right there, I guess. Huh?
We kind of, Alan and I are smiling because we actually recommended about a few months ago maybe to look at improving that intersection. It just wasn't one of our select board priorities.
Yeah.
We do have a limited staff. We're focusing on these two projects right now, and Alan's been focusing on adding some programs to the park. So far, they've been really successful, but we're kind of at max with how much we can do in one short period.
Yeah.
Is a three-way stop a possibility there? Is that
They
something?
actually talked about a four-way stop,
And
Yeah,
the
they
four-way
consider
stop.
coming off the pier.
a stop as
So
well.
they call it a four-way. But, yeah, there were some initial plans. We had some drawings, and we were talking to the state about it a little bit, but right now it's not a priority, so it's on the back burner. It hasn't been forgotten about.
But I think at least for people who drive in that area, just anecdotally, when I'm down there again just about every day, it sure seems like most people are being pretty careful when they go around the curve and stuff. So hopefully, but yeah, maybe doing more than that down the road might be nice. I'm still impressed, Tim, with how the four-way, it's an intersection I used to dread,
I
the
know,
old, of
me
course,
too, yeah.
Lake Federal, Catherine.
Yeah.
Works well.
I'm just really impressed. I'm stunned at how well that's worked. It just seems like it works
Yeah.
very well, the four-way
Right.
stop there.
I totally agree with you. I think
Yeah.
I think they did a nice job on that. And
Yeah, a vast, like I said,
Yeah.
I just would dread going into that intersection, especially southbound on Federal Street
Yeah.
probably, but that's worked pretty well.
trying to get over to Catherine Street.
Yeah, that's worked pretty well. What's the biggest issue? The city's got plenty of issues going on. Again, there's been so much activity in recent years. What are some of the top issues you're dealing with this summer? Anything kind of standing out, or just a bunch of issues?
That's a good question, Richard.
Of course, again, we
obviously
talked about the PD, that possible move. The North Main Street is kind of, pending.
I would say probably, obviously the drug thing is always an issue.
Yeah.
But I'd like to say that I think the street crimes unit has been successful.
Okay.
I'm sure Carrie's on the same email list that I am when we get updated as to police reports.
Yeah, with both the city and towns throwing in
Yeah.
some more bucks for that, of course.
Yeah. And they're not all of them make the messenger, so we have a good feel for what the activity is.
Yeah.
And I think the police department should be commended for taking this head on, and I think they're making an impact.
Yeah.
So Bill Nyan and I are meeting on Thursday to have a police discussion,
Yeah.
just to sort of check in, I think. And so we'll be talking about that. Overall in the city, I cannot, I don't know that I've come across a person, a tourist, that have not had a number of accolades for the way the city looks.
Yeah.
One thing that I do, some people might think it's a little sketchy as mayor, but if I see someone who has the appearance of being a tourist or someone who, I pretty much can tell they're looking around. So I stop and introduce myself and have a conversation with them as to what brings them to the area. I'm always interested as to why they're here. And I just met a couple from Cleveland, Ohio, that rent a camp down on Sampson's Point. They've been doing it for 30 years.
Really?
And they could not be more complimentary about the way the city looks, about the environment, about what places to eat, where to go. So it's to the point where they've been coming for 30 years, their children have been coming for 30 years, and now their grandchildren are coming. So it's always interesting to see what is a draw to St. Albans, but not just the city, but the city and town together.
Yeah.
And there's, as I said, to a person, there has not been a complaint as to how the city looks and what the upkeep is. So it's very encouraging. Kudos to Dominic and Liz and the team before them and the council for their vision and moving that forward. But we're reaping the benefits of it now.
You're making me think of something. I saw former Mayor Liz the other day, but I was hearing there's filming going on.
Yeah.
And I saw her briefly, and she said, yep, and be sure and ask Tim about that. So again, is Hollywood coming to St. Albans? What's going on exactly?
Well, that was a date that Carrie and I
did.
were on.
Yeah, we went on set. We got to
Yeah.
meet some of the
So what's going on with this? I have very sketchy info about this.
So I just had this discussion with one of my committees today so what has happened with the transition in the TV industry, when we grew up, there was CBS, ABC, and NBC, and those were where the shows were.
Yeah.
Now, you got Fox, FX, TBS, you got Netflix, Amazon. So there's so many opportunities for new shows, and with that comes more and more opportunities for show producers and directors. And what has happened over time is that there's so much activity in the bigger cities, LAs and the New Yorks. The cost is excessive, dealing with permits is excessive, so they've started looking to more rural areas to film their pilots. And Liz was fortunate enough to make a connection with an individual who is in charge of, I believe it's a Vermont Fest, which is it's sort of like a Sundance movie festival in Manchester, Vermont, for TV pilots, more or less.
Really?
And Liz encouraged them to come visit St. Albans in Franklin County. They liked what they saw. They liked the people that they met.
Apparently just a real variety of landscapes and stuff.
A variety of landscapes.
Yeah.
So what came out of it was one producer, Pamela, I can't think of her last name, but came with her director. They loved Franklin County. They loved the people they met, and they chose to film portions of theirs. So they were two weekends ago. They were up in Fairfield on Church Road.
Really?
They were on McQuam Shore, Sampson's Point Road area.
Stonehouse.
Stonehouse
They
in the
did
Bay
take
Park,
some
that's right. Milton Diner.
Bank Street.
And Bank Street House at Katie Collins' house. So
Really?
spent a weekend. The discussion that I had with my board is they spent $7,000 at the Hampton Inn,
Really? Wow.
but maybe other hotels. But
Wow.
they've hired a caterer. They hired Lise Gates to cater their food. So you had a crew of 44 people that were in St. Albans for a weekend, and the economic impact to that was substantial.
We also
So-
had some donations too. I think
Right.
I'd like to thank J&L Service Center. I called Dave Baker, who's been a mechanic longer than most of my kids have been alive, and I said, would you mind being on standby? And he ended up being on the set for over 12 hours and fixing their old pickup truck / prop a couple times. And I think he thought perhaps it would be a lot more exciting. So I just want to thank J&L Service Center for doing the part, because it was really a donation. I mean, he was there all day long.
So again, this is filming a pilot for a potential
Right,
TV
so
show?
it's a pilot,
Yeah.
and if it gets picked up, then they would
Really?
probably be back to utilize. But this gentleman that Liz had met regarding so Manchester does this film fest, and one of the goals that they have is they wanted to have 10 productions filmed in Vermont this year, and currently they're at 8.
Really?
And the one in St. Albans was one of those 8. So there's opportunities for more activity. Liz rolled out the red carpet. She volunteered her time. She was instrumental in that success. They stationed at Kevin Bean's house on McQuam. So he opened his doors, provided his campers. So everything, they could not say enough about the hospitality that they
Really?
received
Oh.
in Franklin County. So
And they also took the time
Interesting.
to interview about 8 people,
I forgot
maybe,
about
with little clips to say, come to Vermont, we'd love to have you here.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of younger employees possible in that industry. Apparently, it's a younger person's industry. I don't know how they define that. But as we look to try to get some people back to our state,
Big
that
issue for Governor Scott. In fact, did
Yeah.
the governor jump into this at all?
he
Yeah,
did
so-
visit the
Yeah.
site.
he was at City Hall.
Sounds like his, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about wanting to get some younger people into the state.
Yeah, so I encouraged him to go down and just pop in and visit with them, and he
Yeah.
did, and they were very impressed by that fact.
Was he was just here coincidentally? on
He was
other
doing
stuff
sort of
then?
more or less a campaign trip, so
I think I
he,
just missed him in City Hall that day and
Yeah.
then heard about the filming, I guess.
So,
Interesting.
yeah, so it was, the way we look at it, and I'm putting on my Franklin County Industrial
Sure.
Development
It's
hat,
fine.
is that it's just another opportunity for job growth, for dollars spent in the community, to expand our economy, and just make us once again a destination for opportunities like this. So the city's excited. We as a FCIDC board, we've discussed it. We've had a discussion of playing a little bit bigger role in this, and so time will tell.
Interesting. Alan, did you have any dealings with these folks?
I didn't really.
Yeah.
My park staff just had to make sure the stone house was clean so they could get served their lunch. So
In the stone house at the Bay Park?
yes,
Yeah.
Classic CCB, Civilian Conservation Corps. In fact, is the town looking to maybe try to throw some bucks into that? Is that also
We
on
are.
kind of the agenda?
That's on our agenda this coming Monday. We're formalizing a memorial plan. So we're hoping that as people want to do something as simple as a bench or maybe more complicated, they can donate a memorial of some sorts at different levels so that we can then have the funds to rehab the building. It's a challenge, as Alan found out, even something as simple as we want to redo the windows and doors, but
Wow.
there isn't just one person who can come in on site and do all the things that it needs to get done. So it's a little bit, we have a local welder, but we need a local person to sandblast and paint and maybe reglaze the windows because we really don't want to take those things out of that structure that's held it in its place for how many years now?
Far crossing, I mean,
So-
boy, 80, sounds like, I think it
Yes.
goes back to the 1930s.
So it
again,
needs some
close to
love, needs some
80 or
money,
so.
and we're going to start with windows and doors.
it
Is
was
that
built
on
in
the-
1933.
Historic
1933.
register absolutely is. And
Yeah.
apparently when the state sold it, I'll say quote unquote, to the town, there was a requirement that we consult with that department for any significant changes.
Which is
So-
typical of the historic buildings, I guess. Right?
So, right, so, and
Have you got a rough price tag on the work?
we do, but it's all in different sections, so that's why we're kind of tackling it with, let's button it up first. The select board was really supportive of that. So we have some funds set aside for the stone house rehab, but that's really just some basic maintenance things right now. I mean, what we'd love to do is, update the electrical, including for our vendors outside for that farmer's market.
Right.
Update the plumbing.
The plumbing be good.
Yeah, plumbing looks like could use some
Yeah.
updating.
So there's some work to be done. Time and use have taken their toll on that
Yeah.
building.
But it's a great, I mean,
It's a
great-
wonderful
Great
building.
looking building.
Yeah.
It's structurally sound.
Yeah.
The historical registry has been real good. Met with them like 3 different times. And the windows and doors, like Carrie said, those are our first mission to get them buttoned up. They're all welded metal, and so with water setting low and stuff, sometimes the bottom portions have to be rebuilt. So it's a work in progress, but we'll get it done.
Yeah, sounds good. Water, wastewater, I can't do a show without at least throwing that subject out. Tim, anything to report on that? Again, issues back in court, anything to report on that?
No, I know it was brought up at the select board meeting last week, maybe.
A little while ago, maybe
Yeah,
not the last one.
Anything to report, Carrie, again, or
There
Tim?
is nothing to report that
No, I
I'm
think,
aware of.
I think the city is in the position that they will wait for the court
Yeah.
decision. I had a conversation with Dominic on this. You know, there was a proposal on the table before I was mayor, and soon after town meeting day, it was refused or turned down. So I think Dominic's of the belief that we put our best foot forward, and now we'll wait and see what the outcome is.
Yeah.
So,
Carrie, anything to add to that?
No, that's
Yeah.
kind of where I think we are as well.
Another issue that seems to have totally gone away. Again, for a while last year, there was talk about a possible proposed city-town fire department merger, and it just seems like that's just totally quieted down. I mean, it seems like the response I get is, hey, things are working well as they are. But is that issue, Tim and Carrie, is that issue going nowhere, just getting no attention these days?
it has not been on our radar, or
Yeah.
my radar, since I started. Carrie and I both attended the state firefighters
Yeah.
convention at the complex 3 weeks ago, probably. And we did a welcome for all the departments, but you look at that was pulled off because of cooperation between city and town. You think they were all one department, the way they handled that event, and all the personalities, I think, get along well. So to your point, yes, it is working well. They seem to, I think they have a good relationship between both departments. I haven't been around that long, but maybe, I don't know what Carrie's thoughts
I would
are.
concur.
Carrie?
They're working really well together.
Yeah.
It just cooled off over the winter, I guess. And it didn't seem like there was a lot of support at the ground level. When the fire departments operate from the ground up, you need that support. We didn't feel that we had it. I think there was a few concerns about that in both the city and the town. So our board, when we were setting our priorities, I don't know if I'd call it strategic planning, but we had a planning session in April, and that wasn't in the top 5. We have to spend our energy, and we have to almost triage our time. Where do we need to spend our time? And in the case of our personnel right now, we're spending it on the DPW project, the town hall project. We're still pursuing that walking path across St. Albans State Highway, where we're hoping to connect Collins Purley and all the people that live on the south side of that access road, as we call it locally, to the other side of the access road. We've applied for a number of grants. Haven't gotten word of getting any yet, but that doesn't mean we will stop. That's where the goat paths are now. That's where people are, and kids, a lot of kids, unfortunately, and some adults, young adults, and other people are just sprinting across the highway around where Thorpe Avenue and Thorpe Avenue Extension used to be.
Yeah, not the best situation.
Yeah.
Speaking of walking paths, I've seen the flyers, the Route 7 walkability.
Yes.
And again, public meeting coming up Tuesday, August 14th. I think I got that. 6:30 to 8:30 at the town hall. And again, just the reference on the flyer was talking about some walking options or rec path walking options just from downtown to Walmart. Can you talk about that a
Right.
little bit?
Yeah, we did receive a grant to study the feasibility of that. I think the location actually might be City Hall. So
is that right?
we'll have to check on that.
That might have been my mistake
but
too. You
we've
think
been-
it's City Hall?
We have a mix of people on that at steering committee as well, which is they've been pretty influential in keeping it going. And what our study was supposed to be, how do you get from where the city sidewalks stop, right in front, or south of the Hungerford building, to that Walmart shopping area, and even how do you get from that where the sidewalk stops to the rail trail? It's not very far. It's very, very close. Yet there's a little confusion on that intersection. And we all see this almost every month of the year. People are walking, pushing carriages and wheelchairs on Route 7. There's not enough shoulder.
I see that too. It's a
The
pretty
speed is
scary.
excessive.
Yeah.
So, the city's been involved. Chip Sawyer has spent a lot of time working with that committee too, to try to come up with one cohesive plan on how we can get people, get a rec path or a walking path from that city sidewalk to the north part of town. It'll likely be only on one side of the street.
Yeah.
It'll likely be, 6 to 8 feet wide most of the time. Maybe it'll even be gravel. I don't think we've discussed that yet, but That's what this meeting is about.
That sounds like that'd be a
Yeah.
great initiative if that could be pulled
yes.
off. Yeah, I see the same thing. I literally see,
You-
strollers along Route
Mm-hmm.
7. I almost can't believe it when I see it.
I don't think you can take a trip north along Route 7 and not see someone walking on the shoulder.
Yeah,
I mean,
see it a lot.
So we
Almost-
need it, and I think we need it to be maintained all year as well, so.
So you think so it sounds to you like there's some, at least potential for this, decent potential, hopefully?
I hope so. I mean, what this study is doing is studying the best, or coming up with a recommended option. So how do we do it? Because I think we've tried to do this in a simplified manner, but then we all get caught up with how are we going to do it. And then, you get more than 10 people in a room and you have 25 different options. So they're trying to come up with one supported recommendation to do that. And then I think they'll start seeking some construction grants.
Alan, any feel for that as a PW chief in the town? Can you picture enough space on one side of the road there to do something?
Well, I actually sat in with V-Trans on that
Yeah.
discussion not too long ago, and District 8 and I have various opinions. So we actually are on the same side. It's all about maintenance.
Yeah.
And quite honestly, the side they wanted to put it on, I disagree with. And I know they're looking at it because the study showed what side they wanted to put it on. They didn't realize there's water lines and such on that side of the road. So, but I think there's a lot more studying to be done.
Yeah.
But once again, it's having the space. Because you can't put a 4 or 5 foot sidewalk out there. It's got to be an 8 to 10 foot path, and that's going to take up a lot of property space with your
Yeah.
buffer zones and everything that the state requires.
Oh, sounds like a big issue. Sounds like it's good. It's getting some attention anyway.
It is.
Tim, that makes me think of just one of the tough situation. I think he might have been city rec director. You know what I'm going to talk about.
I just shared this with someone today.
Is that right, too? In fact, did you apply? Did that money even just come out of nowhere, or did you apply? Was it about $600,000 or something?
It was
Not too far off.
$562,000.
And of course, this was for the proposed rec path between the city and St. Albans
It was
Bay.
Right.
a rec path from Houghton Park down to the Bay School.
Wow.
And the money was received. The money had been approved. The catch was we just couldn't get, and I had left the job right about the negotiating time, but
Yeah.
the problem was that just could not get enough right-of-ways.
I mean, there were a few landowners who just wouldn't buy into it.
Larger landowners
Yeah,
that
larger
weren't
landowners.
open to giving up the right-of-way for the path. So
I think, as I recall, my old radio boss, Dave Kimmel, maybe took one of the last shots of that, maybe with his rotary hat, but just didn't poke. It's funny because a few people have mentioned that to me lately. Jeremy Reed at the Messenger says, Richard, geez, that'd be great. I said, geez, Jeremy.
we had it at one.
Yeah. Anyway, that issue's getting, there's no more.
Yeah, I think the two that I hear about is to the bay and to the complex.
Yeah,
Those are
the two
probably the
things.
two largest.
Well, I mean, this year we finalized a sidewalk master plan,
Right.
or they call it something else, it's a more generic term. But we have a list, the Planning Commission worked really hard on this to come up with a prioritized list of different areas that we wanted to expand in. And that one comes up often, the bay to the city somehow, up Lake Street, Lake Road, depending on what municipality you're in. That one is still pretty, it's like one on the top 5 of requests. They want us to finish the path from Congress, from where the city sidewalk stops to
Yeah.
Hardack. Connect.
Right.
The hospital is very supportive of our request to build a rec path that would connect the complex to Hardack. And then, of course, build in a connection to the hospital. So
Yeah.
Rise Vermont and Jill Bowen has been a great supporter of ours for that. As we try to increase activity of all levels. That's what's exciting about these paths.
Yeah. Speaking of Hardack, Tim, the Hardack city merger, was that finalized at some point? I think it seems like when I last asked about that, I was trying to think if there were just a few details left.
Yeah,
Is
no,
that a done deal?
All the documents have been signed, and
Yeah.
I can't. That was back in May, I think,
Oh, a
maybe.
while-
But yeah,
a while ago.
it's happened.
Yeah.
So the city has taken over ownership.
And again, a tremendous
maintenance.
resource. I know that means a lot to
Yep.
you. Aldous Hill, Hardack area, you know well, but again, that's another tremendous asset for the city and town.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. I think, one thing I want to comment on is you look around the region and let's say you're visiting the area. I mean, I think our region is as impressive as it's ever been. I mean, you talk about what's happening down the bay with the music activity in the farmers market, and same in Taylor Park with the band tonight and farmers market on Saturday, and then you had the car show, and you got another car show coming up.
Yeah.
You had the state fire convention. We did the photo competition. It's just nonstop. You talked about the Swanton event in the region.
Franklin County Field Days, of course.
Field Days is
starting
coming up.
tomorrow through Sunday, great event.
We've had Little League tournaments ongoing. It's just nonstop, and a lot of it is attributed to the success is attributed to the number of volunteers who have committed to look at the field days and how much time and energy that takes. But there's just a number of different activities that if you can't find something to do, you're not looking too hard.
Yep, that's well put.
I throw in the jig in the valley as well.
Great. I was there for about 4 hours.
Yeah,
Tremendous.
I heard it was a great crowd.
Really nice event.
Yep. So
No, a lot of good stuff going on. Carrie, Peerless, or I should say, and the old Energizer plant. I guess Peerless is still out there on a temporary basis as their
I think.
project continues, their expansion project continues in the town park. You hearing anything about or Tim, you can wear your
Got to
other
put
hat
his
too.
FCIDC hat on because
Maybe
Tim
put
might
your-
hear more about
As
that.
in a more permanent use for the old Energizer plant, Tim?
I don't think there's any rush on that,
Yeah.
Richard. Right now, the current lease will take them through January of 2020,
No, so they'll be
So-
there for a while.
and they're taking up basically three-fourths of
Oh,
the
really?
building now.
Um,
So I don't think the owner, Pat Malone, is in any rush to. I think he's going to wait until Peerless and then start doing some renovation would be my guess. So I think, and the way there's been a few hiccups in the project, so it might even be longer
all right.
time frame. So I think that's something we're looking at now.
Keeping your FCIDC hat on for the moment. Any other activity? Of course, Ben and Jerry's, of course, big expansion project also in the town park. I
Yeah,
guess that's done. That's finished.
That's finished. Barry Calabo is
Barry Calabo
getting ready to
also.
wrap up theirs. That was a $22 million expansion as well,
Wow.
with 30,000 square feet, but with their
Wow.
equipment.
Any rumblings about any new industries coming in?
Yeah, we're working with one now. We just potentially reviewed a lease. We're going back and forth on details, but there may be an announcement here in the next couple weeks. So we're excited about that. And
Walmart, nothing again, that seemed to be a surprise. I think the expectation at least was when Walmart finally made it, it would have some company out there, but nobody's making any noise about
not that I've heard.
Carrie,
No,
nothing you're
it's
hearing.
cooled down quite a bit.
Yeah.
I think bricks and mortar are having a rough time right now, actually.
Well, that's certainly not a bad point. I do what I can I'm a bricks and mortar guy, but I realize I'm probably more in the minority by the second on a number of fronts. Alan, aside from the new headquarters, which you'd love to see, well, I've got you a town PW department. You're in pretty decent shape equipment-wise. How do you think the department's doing these days?
The department's doing real well.
Yeah.
We just got a new tandem dump truck.
Oh,
Equipment's right up to par.
yeah.
Busy. We got a lot of grants. We just replaced all the culverts on Bronson Road. Our paving has started. Probably in the next 3 weeks we'll be all done with our paving.
Yeah.
So a lot of ditch work, roadside mowing, all that. So crew's doing well. We're busy. If you could stretch the summer for us, that would be good because don't have enough time during the day to get what we want done.
It
So
has been a real summer, though. That's for sure.
it
I think
has.
Burlington tied its record for 29 80-degree days in the month
is
of
that right?
July.
I
I
didn't
guess
see that.
story in the paper today about the hottest July on record. I love it when I see hottest July ever. Hey, ever's a long time, folks. How about on record?
Yeah,
Always drives me
ever.
On
crazy,
record.
but that's
Yeah.
on record, but it's been a real summer. But yeah, it doesn't last forever, that's for sure. Speaking of paving, Hathaway Point Road, is that done? I know they've been working on out there.
Yep, shoulder work's done. There's a couple driveways that we're gonna finish up ourselves. Just they sat too low, so we're just putting some aprons on them. So we do have that to finish up, but for the most part, Hathaway's done.
So paving's gone pretty well, been going okay?
Yeah, they moved right in, worked pretty efficient. The contractor has different jobs, so they pulled out of town for a little while, so they'll be back in a couple weeks, and I'm looking at probably a week and a half, and they'll be done.
Yeah. Tim, the work like north again, there's a little more work on North Main Street today. Seems like that's almost all done?
That's more of a state job.
Yeah.
They did some painting in the bike path on the south end down by the Cadillac Motel.
Yeah.
They added some colorful green to the road markings.
Yeah.
So, so that's pretty close to wrapping up.
Down to just a couple minutes. Carrie, anything you want to quickly mention that we haven't talked about?
Just please stay tuned if you have questions or just curious about our Department of Public Works project. Please call us, call Alan, myself, and check either our website, Facebook, or come to a meeting. We're trying to use all three platforms just to get the word out so people are aware of what's going on.
I realize not many people come to meetings, but you get some people.
We get a handful of people that
usual.
comes to
Kind of the
meetings.
usual.
That's right.
Yeah.
And as far as you asked about the quality of the lake, we also put it on our website if in fact we have to close the beach.
And again, I have to admit, the beach has not been closed so far to date,
It's
correct?
been good. It traditionally is more of an August issue anyway.
Yeah.
But yes, we've been lucky.
Yeah. Tim, again, at city council meetings, a handful of people. It's not
Handful
like
of
you
people,
typically get
yeah.
big crowd or anything.
Nothing significant by any means. Two things I would like to share that the council has taken the initiative on quickly is that if you go down Main Street, you'll see the 100th anniversary banners hanging up on Main Street.
Thanks, that was on my list.
for the
And
co-op.
photo contest, how's that been going?
Photo contest went wonderful. We had 138
Wow.
photos submitted. We've got our top 14, I think. We're reaching out to get files to get them blown up, and that'll be our next post, putting them up in the park.
Right.
The other piece is downtown merchants were able to access 15 milk cans that will be painted, and once again recognizing the co-op's 100th anniversary. And the last thing is on Tuesday the 7th, we're doing a blood draw at City Hall. And one of the things we're doing is, as people give, we're giving out gift cards or certificates for downtown merchants trying to use the blood draw. Historically, Red Cross has been giving out Amazon ones, so we thought, why don't we do more local? So
Very good. On that note, we'll close up shop. Thanks very much to St. Albans
Thanks,
Mayor
Richard.
Tim Smith, Carrie Johnson, the St. Albans Town Manager, Alan Mashtere, the St. Albans Town Public Works Director. Thanks for the time, folks.
Thank you, Richard.
And thanks to Zach and Kylie out there for doing all the hard work. Really appreciate it. That'll do it for us. We'll see you again here for the September show, I think Wednesday, September 5. And we'll hopefully have Alan Mashtere, at that point, the then former St. Albans City Public Works Chief with us, hopefully. Thanks for watching, folks. We'll see you down the road. Thanks.